Hey everybody, it's Elizabeth. Welcome back to my channel. I am here in Cincinnati to see another show, and I'm very excited because I'm here to see Les Misérables. So I'm going to take you in, show you around, and then tell you my thoughts afterward.
That's where I was thinking.
Alright, so I got my magnet. It is just a square, but it isn't quite the normal, boring magnet. It's got a slightly different design than most of my other ones, so yeah, I like it. All right, everybody. Well, I am back from Les Mis. Actually, that was a few days ago. It has moved to the #1 spot for the year for me. I absolutely loved it. It is the first time I've ever seen it. I saw the movie version that came out with Hugh Jackman and Russell Crowe and all them a few years ago, and I wasn't a fan. I just didn't really like it. And so I thought, well, maybe I don't like the musical. But I couldn't pass up an opportunity when it came and I could see it live. And I loved it. I loved every minute. I thought all the performers were great. Yeah, right from the very first song, which is called Look Down. And it's basically all the men who are like enslaved because of crimes and things like that. And it's the chorus of them, but then they each kind of have a little like 2-line solo, and each soloist was like better than the last. Like the first one stood up, I was like, oh, he's amazing. I was like, is that Jean Valjean? I hope that's Jean Valjean because he's great. And then the next person stood up and did their solo. I was like, oh no, I hope he. So like I knew as soon as that song happened, and like each, like they were really just all ended up being background performers, but they were all so good that I knew. I was like, oh, this is going to be a good show. Now, I do know that it's not everybody's favorite. There are actually two people that, my best friend and my mom, actually. My best friend doesn't care for the show, and one of the reasons that she's told me is because of how, like, depressing and sad it is, which I get. And my mom, so taking a step back, my dad was actually with me to see Les Mis, which is why I didn't get a whole lot of footage at the theater, because I was just enjoying time with my dad. It was his Christmas present. And my mom didn't want to go see it with us. And so I did not get her a ticket because she was like, it's so depressing, I don't want to go. So I do know that there are those people out there that just don't like the show because they don't like going in and watching things that depress them. And that is a show that is going to depress you. I cried at least twice during the show, maybe 3 times. But yeah, I don't care. The music's so wonderful, and the performances for this time were just so wonderful that it has bumped Hamilton out of the top spot for the shows I've seen this season. So if you've never seen Les Mis before, it is what's called a sung-through musical, which means there is basically no spoken dialogue. It is all sung. It's basically a modern-day opera, and Hamilton is actually the same way. There's very little just straight spoken dialogue, if any. And one thing I noticed is that I would hear some of the singers, like the leads, singing, their, like, I guess, dialogue sections and things like that. And be like, oh yeah, they're good. They're pretty good. I like them. I have no complaints. But I wouldn't be blown away until they got to their solo, like their song. And then when they were able to just like open up and embrace it and just sing, it blew me away. Every single character, when they got to their song, I was always, listening to them just do the other, the duets and things like that. I'm like, oh yeah, they're good. And then they got to their song. I'm like, oh, they're fantastic. Never mind. I take back what I was thinking before. And a good example of that, probably the best one, is the character of Marius, who doesn't get his solo until one of the very last songs in the whole show. Because mostly he's singing duets with his love interest, or he's one of the students in the rebellion, so he's singing with the other students in the rebellion and like having like sung dialogue with them and things like that. And then he gets his shining moment at the very end. And the whole show I was thinking, oh yeah, he's good. He's good. I like him. He's good. And then he got to his song at the end and I was like, oh, it's wonderful. He's so good. And it was kind of like every character like that for me, but a lot of them would have their main song first or, halfway through or something like that. So I would have that realization earlier. But with him, I was like, oh yeah, he's good. He's good. And then, and then that song happened and so that was the biggest revelation for me as far as like listening to the performers. And because I had been hearing him so long, just, as part of the ensemble or as part of the, he had his solos obviously in his like sung dialogue, but it's a very different thing than hearing his ballad. And that's not to say that anyone wasn't good during those dialogue scenes, I guess, for lack of a better, term, that's what I'll call them. They were all good, but it is just a very different way of singing when you're singing this, soliloquy, that is just yours, as opposed to just like you're singing like one line of a solo and then you have three other people around you who get their lines and then you're back to singing your line of, so it's a very different thing. And so, they're good during those dialogue scenes, but then you get to hear them just really open up and show what they can do. And it was very impressive with every one of the leads and it was just fantastic. Like Javert, who is the main antagonist, I guess, he doesn't get his moment until, halfway through the show. And he starts his song, and as soon as he finishes, my dad leaned over to me and he was like, he was fantastic. And he was, but because of just the nature of what he had been doing before that, you didn't really get a feel for what he could do until, halfway through the show when he sings his song. So, and that's just the nature of that kind of musical, and it's fine. And I like it, but it is just a different way of doing things where, a normal musical, take like, I don't know, Wicked is the first one that comes to mind, the stage version, not the movie. You see these characters and hear them giving dialogue and things like that. And then the first time they sing is one of those big, moments where they get to shine. And so you're in awe of them from the first time they sing. And it's a different thing with a sung through musical. Now, the show was in Cincinnati at the Aronoff Center, which I have taken you to before. If you saw my review of Funny Girl, it was at the same theater, and I've been there many times. It is right downtown Cincinnati. And while we are at a matinee for Les Mis, usually I go to evening shows because they just fit with my schedule better. But I don't ever feel unsafe, even when I go by myself. And that's simply because I do my research beforehand. Or, the first time I went, I looked up, what parking garage I was going to park in. And I picked one it's only like a block from the theater. It's very, heavily trafficked. So I never feel like I'm walking somewhere that's, I'm going to be alone, or down an alley or whatever. Now, in the parking garage itself, I actually do something very specific to make sure that I feel safe once I'm in the parking garage or, once I get there. And I just park close to the elevator. I go up as high as I need to because it's, several stories high, so that I can get a parking spot right next to the elevator. Because specifically when I'm done with the show, I'm usually with a whole crowd of people coming from the theater to the parking garage. But I never know if any of those people are going to be going up to my floor or if I'm going to be by myself, once I get up to the floor that I'm on. And so I want to make sure that when I get off the elevator, I don't have to walk far. I can my car's right there. I'm in my car and locking my doors right away, just in case. You never know. And so that is one thing that I try to do specifically at the Aronoff because, it is Cincinnati and you just never know. So that's one thing to consider if you're going to a big city for any reason and you're going to be parking in a parking garage by yourself. Don't worry about going, to a higher level, because I could have gotten a parking spot on a much lower level, but that's not really going to help me if I have to walk far. And if I feel safer parking near the elevator, then I just go up as high as I need to. So consider doing that, next time you have to go and park by yourself. But yeah, I loved it. I had so much fun. My dad loved it and had a ton of fun, and he loved it. I realize that the subject matter isn't for everyone, and I get it. I don't want every show I see to be that depressing, but I like seeing occasional ones that are just very moving like that. So, well, thanks so much for watching. If you like this video, go ahead and give it a like and a subscribe, and follow me over on Instagram at Lead the Life Vlog, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.